when I was finishing uni, I thought geospatial was really just about maps. I tell them to learn to code. So don't treat your research as a sort of one-man show between you and your supervisors, like what Sentinel-5P can map. So there's a lot of new sensors that are coming up. And I love that last line of the most chill lecturers. I love that.
And as usual, I'm your host, Linus Anari. And today we are doing something a little bit different. Today we thought we'd have a live chat, with students.
Amplifying African tech stories, elevating technical brilliance. This is the GeoHabari Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the Young Professional segment hosted by Linus Anari. This segment is intentionally raw, filled with banter, and grounded in authentic, lived experiences. To support the show, please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoy the episode, leave us a rating or review. It helps bring visibility to the podcast.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the Young Professional segment of the GeoHabari Podcast. And as usual, I'm your host, Linus Anari. And today we are doing something a little bit different, Not just the usual recording, but today we thought we'd have a live chat, with students coming into the conversation and also young professionals joining in right here on Zoom. And today we'll be talking about the unconventional geospatial side quests and career paths. I know we are probably used to the usual conventional and traditional paths whereby someone just hopes into becoming a GIS analyst, a surveyor, a cartographer, map specialist, name them all. But in reality, careers don't always have or rather follow a straight line. Sometimes those, the unpremeditated and the unprecedented twists and turns, they usually end up shaping the most meaningful of journeys. And today, to help us unpack all this, I'm so honored to be joined by a guest and a friend of the podcast as well. Perhaps even by far one of the most chill lecturers I think I've ever met, Dr. Pamela Ochungo. Welcome to the session today.
Thank you so much, Linus. Thank you so much. And I love that last line of the most chill lecturers. I love that.
I'm actually saying that because I remember the last time, or the first time I ever met you was when you had come for a GS week, and I got to get that aspect of you when you were dancing to the TikTok challenge. I don't know if you remember it. There was one
Of
there and
course.
you had a lot of energy. It's like it was born for you. That particular
I totally
challenge.
enjoyed that GIS day at the UON.
Yeah,
And
it
the
was
dancing
actually
was so much fun. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
that was the first time, I think I interacted with you. But
Yeah.
just to give a quick intro about Dr. Pamela. She's an alumni of DAD, DAAD. It's one of those programs that Germany offers full scholarships to students to go study there. And she is a remote sensing specialist, mentor of the Beef Visioneers, the one that is usually run by Mercedes-Benz. She's a mentor there and also a mentor in the African women in GIS. Yeah. And she has actually done quite a lot, including the most recently held, what was it, like the European Space Agency Observation for African Symposium, the one in Italy, where she gave not just one, but two talks on the use of Earth observation on them. Yeah, and she's one of those inspirational figures, if I may say, in the geospatial field. But the most important and fascinating aspect about Dr. Pamela, if I may say, is how she has managed to meander her paths in a very unconventional manner. And hence why I thought that she would really be a perfect guest for our session today, and also to enlighten most of those who have perhaps joined the geospatial field or are done with geospatial and still trying to look for the way ahead. So yeah, once again, welcome to the session. And just to start us real quick, could you just give us a quick, brief academic and professional journey, yours?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Linus, for having me here. I'm really excited. Just to mention that I'm also a mentor for Women in Space Kenya, which is a brainchild of Charlene, who I also see here. So it's really nice. So myself, I finished undergraduate at a year. Most of you are probably not born, 1999. And yeah, immediately we were taken into a job by, he was a senator recently, but at that time he was not in politics. He was called Lenny Kivuitu, who was running the GeoMaps. I guess many of you have heard of GeoMaps. So he took the entire class. At that time, opportunities were way more than they are now. And we worked there for 6 months. And after leaving, because the project had ended, I went to ILRI. So ILRI is the International Livestock Research Institute. And I went there as a GIS analyst, working there for 15 years, during which I did my master's because they also gave me a partial scholarship. I did a master's in geoinformation science at the Manchester Metropolitan University. And then later on, leaving ILRI in 2015 to go and do my PhD, where I got a full scholarship by the DAD. And there now I was looking at honeybees and the landscape. So it's been a very interesting journey. And currently I'm in academia at TUK and also doing my postdoc with the British Institute in Eastern Africa with a project called MISAM. And MISAM is an acronym for Mapping of Endangered Archaeological Sites and Monuments. And this project is domiciled in Cambridge in the UK. So that's the brief of it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Just to get this side out of it, looking back when you were, let's say, done with uni, and the first job you had imagined yourself doing, and how far you've come so far, how much did you drift from reality from then up until now, in terms of your expectations after uni and up until now?
Yeah, thank you. It's very interesting. You know, back then when I was finishing uni, I thought geospatial was really just about maps. So I graduated thinking in terms of jobs. And over time, I stopped thinking about it in terms of jobs, but now I think about it in terms of possibilities. You know, our career area is so vast and so diverse that possibilities are limitless, essentially. So when I first graduated, my mindset was very narrow. You know, I thought a career in geospatial meant that I would be working with maps, working with surveys in the field, and maybe doing some GIS analysis. And then at that time, it was also, you know, a very structured technical thinking way. And in my mind, it was very linear. This is what I was going to do. And I was focused on securing, you know, the traditional role of a surveyor, the traditional role that came with that job description. But with time, my perspective has really broadened over the years, and I realized that geospatial isn't just about maps. It's actually about solving human and environmental problems. It's about bridging of cultures. It's about shaping of policies. And I've moved from seeing it as a profession, and instead I see it as a platform for impact and a platform for innovation. And so, you know, it's a platform whereby you can make some real impact and tell stories. And in that way, you're able to solve real world problems. And some of these problems, whether it's about climate resilience, whether it's about improving the livelihoods of smallholder dairy farmers, whether it's about improving the livelihoods of bee farmers, you know, heritage preservation, you know, people or voices that are usually left out of conversations are now able to be included in these conversations by using this platform of geospatial technology. So it's really an important change of mindset that I've had from when I was living undergraduate to now. What, you know, experience has shown me, and then I see it really about impact, solving problems for people, solving problems for heritage, solving problems for the planet. So that's really how far I've come, Linus.
I really love that answer and the whole thing about it being vast and diverse, because it sounds as though like it took quite a while for you to actually get to realize that, you know, there's that shift from it's not just a profession, but it's a platform for impact, as you've put it, which is actually rather brilliant. Just a bit fascinated to get to learn, was there like a moment when your ideology shifted? Like, was it because of someone, or was it because you were just trying different paths and you came to realize, like, what particularly inspired you to rather open up your mind to know these other different paths that exist within Geospatial?
Yeah, thank you so much. So, as I mentioned, my first job was with a traditional surveyor, that is Mr. Lenny Kivuti, who was running Geomaps and still does, run the company called Geomaps. And we were doing some traditional projects on mapping of infrastructure and utility lines. Now, one thing that I have to mention is before I got into this job, at the University of Nairobi, we had 2 semesters of whereby every Friday we were expected to go and do our projects. So Fridays were set aside for projects in fifth year, first semester and second semester. And because we did not have the facilities we have now, the young people don't know just how lucky. You don't know how lucky you are now that you have everything at your fingertips, You have your computers, you have internet, you have now even more recent AI, which is literally, everything is just going out of the roof. Back then, we used to go to a mainframe computer. I don't know whether you've learned about this in history, because this is literally history. We had the mainframe computer, and it was a huge machine that was located in Chiromo's computer science department. So we used to walk over to do our computer science labs in Chiromo because there were no computers, there were no desktops, there was nothing. We had to go there. Now, much later on, desktops came, but you can imagine the capacity was way lower than what we have now. And so, in order to, if you chose to do a project in GIS or remote sensing, you had to be assigned or attached to an external partner. And so myself and a few others were some of the few who chose to do projects in this area, courtesy of Professor Mulaku. And I say he's one of my biggest mentors. Professor Mulaku from the University of Nairobi. He had just come in from Canada from finishing his PhD degree, and he was teaching us land information systems. And so that's how I got into that area of GIS and got very, very excited about it. And so every Friday, I used to go to the Department of Resource Surveys and Remote Sensing, DRSRS, because they had quite a good lab for GIS. Okay. So in the process of going there, I used to do my project under the guidance of some more seasoned experts in that area. And there was one man who used to come in from the International Livestock Research Institute, also to be taught how to do GIS. And in the process, he saw what I was doing, which was a very unique area of research at the time. And it was something similar to the Google Maps that we use now for directions. And at that time, Google Maps didn't even exist. And so I was doing my project was the emergency routing of a Nairobi fire engine. And it was using, I was using quite complex macros, what you call Arc macro language in Arc info. At that time, we did not have ArcGIS or ArcView. So you had to type in commands. And so he loved my project and he told me, young lady, when you finish your undergrad, please call me. I'll see what to do. When I finished campus, I joined GeoMaps. Then after the 6 months that the project ended, I decided to give him a call. So he was called Mr. Okello Onyango. And I called him a few times before he finally managed to give me an appointment with a young Dutch lady who had just come in to start GIS at the International Livestock Research Institute. And she was working with the smallholder dairy group. And so I went, and the rest is history, literally. So my mind opened at that point to just the kind of research or analysis that we were doing regarding smallholder dairy farmers, livestock, the fodder crops they use, the markets that they need to access, the milk surpluses and deficits, etc. So there was so much that went into this area of analysis that my mind opened up instantly, from the traditional surveys to, livestock. And I remember Professor Wayumba, who at that time was Mr. Wayumba teaching me at University of Nairobi, kept, whenever I would meet him, he'd tell me, Pamela, you're still mapping cows. He would be very fascinated. How are you mapping cows? So I would explain to him the kind of things we're doing. So this really opened my mind to possibilities beyond the traditional survey, and that you can actually apply our technologies into so many different fields. Yeah.
Also, could you just please expound what you mean by mopping cows?
Oh, no. So to him, because I was a GIS analyst at ILRI, it meant I was mapping cows. So, of course, this is one of the things that we were doing. But mapping cows, was putting it rather simplistically, because what we were doing was actually doing a lot of analysis related to livestock. Okay. So essentially, we were looking at the environment in which the livestock were being kept. Were they in high elevated areas, low? What were the most suitable areas? What are, some of the technologies that could be introduced that would be suitable for livestock in particular regions, the kind of fodder that they could be given, distances to markets, and so many other kind of interesting analysis that we did. So Mr. Oyumba, or now Professor Oyumba, used to say, "Are you still mapping cows?" Which was a very interesting perspective for me.
Well, yeah. And so you've also mentioned that you also moved further to now hopping into bees and what have you, and also the archaeology side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was that shift? Like, how did you end up then moving from that part of livestock again to a different aspect altogether that doesn't necessarily involve, the agriculture side of animal rearing?
While I was at ILRI and being surrounded so much by researchers, I knew that I also wanted to be a researcher just like them. And so after I did my master's, I realized that still, even after master's, I was still doing a lot of technical work, whereby you're told by a scientist, do this, do that, which is fine. But at that point, I knew that I wanted to drive my agenda. I wanted to be the one to decide on what research questions I want to handle. And so I decided to start looking up towards a PhD. And then a PhD opportunity opened up at ISIPE. I don't know whether some of you have heard of ISIPE. This is the International Center for Insect Physiology and Ecology. And now, in collaboration with the DAD, so DAD offers scholarships through institutions such as ISIPE, such as ILRI, such as universities. And with ISIPE and ILRI, usually they have the opportunity of designing or coming up with a research area which they want or which they're interested in, and then writing a short concept note and sending it out, and then potential students get to apply and write a concept also within that area, and then you're interviewed, etc. And then if you're successful, you're taken in. So then they sent out a call whereby they were interested in measuring honeybee colony strength by analyzing the landscape context in which honeybees were existing. And so I applied and wrote a concept, and I was called, and I passed the interview, and then I became a PhD student of the DAD under ISIPE. And this is how now I came to work with honeybees. I mean, and honeybees is and such an entirely fascinating area. You cannot believe just how much of honeybees depends on their landscape context. A lot of it depends on the landscape context. And so this is what I came to do mapping on, to use now remote sensing, and especially now looking at more sophisticated remote sensing platforms such as radar, synthetic aperture radar like Sentinel-1. That's the first time I started using now Sentinel-1, and then fusing with Sentinel-2 and coming up with, what are the potential areas of habitats, honeybee habitats. And then now I did a lot of field work in the field with honeybees and linked this together with the remote sensing work. And, this became quite an important area, which got me a lot of opportunities, including an opportunity to be based at Penn State University in the US for some time, opportunities to travel a lot into, go to conferences, because anytime you mentioned honeybees and remote sensing, it got their attention, and I would always be called for these opportunities. And then now, apart from the honeybees, before I go into postdoc, during the time when I was still working with ILRI, I have to mention that I never imagined that geospatial science could also play a central role in public health and humanitarian fields. And in my career at ILRI, I also got involved in a project whereby we used geospatial tools to map the global distribution of zoonotic diseases. And zoonotic diseases are diseases that move between animals and humans. And this project ended up being one of the most important piece of work in which I've been involved in, especially when you look at the number of citations that it has received. It is actually my most cited publication in the paper that we wrote. So here we brought together huge data sets, environmental variables, disease records, and visualized them at a global scale. And then we did this publication and report to the UK donors. And it really opened up my eyes that geospatial is not just about land and boundaries. It's just essentially about life, okay? It's about predicting when the next outbreak might occur, helping governments to prepare for emergencies, and also, ultimately protecting people and ecosystems. So when I think of careers in geospatial, there's all these possibilities. There's public health agencies, humanitarian organizations like Red Cross, international NGOs, and it's a reminder that this field can have direct impact on human survival and well-being. And this is something that I never really saw coming when I first graduated. Yeah.
Wow. And this, as we proceed, a quick information session for those who are in. Feel free to send a question on the chat, whichever that you have, and I'm gonna read it out loud. And Dr. Pamela is gonna help us answer it. Anywho, we are gonna go on a break, and we will be back shortly.
Speaking of opportunities, career paths, exposure, and the power of networking, there's something exciting that's coming up: the Africa's Women in Space Conference. This will be happening from the 27th to 28th November in Strathmore University. It is absolutely free and it is open to everyone. So all you have to do is register in the link that is in the podcast description and you are good to go. That is literally your pass to the event. This is where you get an opportunity to network and interact with industry leaders, innovators and builders, techies in the space, but also students from across the region. Please sign up in the registration link below, and we look forward to seeing you on the 27th and 28th November at Strathmore University. We can't wait to see you guys there.
All right, welcome back when we're having such an incredible chat. Dr. Pamela, thank you very much so far for sharing all that. But it sounds interestingly that, there is a way that someone needs to position themselves for actually most of these opportunities. How would you then, like in terms of advice-wise, recommend for people to position themselves for this type of opportunities, especially these that are unexplored, like the ILRI ones, the this B, the archaeology, and what have you?
Yeah. Yes. So one thing that I always tell even my students at TUC is keep a learning mind. Okay, keep your mind open towards learning for different opportunities. For instance, I tell them to learn to code because once you learn how to code, then possibilities are endless. Okay. And then I also, when they're looking for attachments and such opportunities, I also tell them to explore. Some of my students have given them, when they've asked me, what I think in terms of where they can go for attachment, I tell them, try ISIPE, and if they want to, I put in a good word for them. And one of my former students went to ISIPE and did an internship there after finishing undergraduate and was very successful to an extent that he may now be getting, an opportunity there to work, as a GIS analyst. So essentially, it's about reading widely. Do not limit yourself to, traditional surveying and traditional mapping in areas which are well known, but to always read. And the problem now again with the young people that we have now, and I'm not saying it's a problem, is they are so bombarded with so much technology, and now with AI, especially the large language models, that there's a temptation not to read a lot. But if you read a lot about what's going on in the world, what are the issues happening in the world, then you start getting ideas of where you can work and start, writing concept notes, approaching these organizations with your ideas and saying, I can do this for you. I can even start as an attachee. Okay. And when they hear that, they will be willing to give you an opportunity in most cases, because as an attachee, they know that they don't need to invest too much, but they don't need to invest too much, but you'll bring in something useful. So I urge people to look around them, see possible opportunities, look at these companies, write small concept notes and tell them you're willing to start it even as an attachee or an intern, and do ABCD for them. And once they see the usefulness of what you can do for them, they will most likely want to keep you as one of their members of staff. So I'll urge the young people to keep open minds, to look around them, to see all the opportunities that are there. These opportunities are actually limitless. Like the other day, I was in the field in Lamu, and we just had a lot of brainstorming, and I was just saying the way, I wish every county would come up with a plan in which, they say that this is the heritage and tourism potential of our county, and this is what we can do with it. And all of it is related to geospatial. For instance, I was saying, even in Chalbi, you can do what are these things called? Those desert safaris, the way people go all the way to Dubai to do them. You can do them in Chalbi. In Bungoma, when I went for fieldwork last year, we were climbing rocks, looking for caves and rock shelters. And I saw a huge opportunity there for tourism for those who like to climb rocks. And you can create a small heritage village down there at the base of the rock. So as these tourists, the Mzungus, are climbing up these rocks, after they're done, they can come and sample the food of Mungoma, the heritage, the dancing, etc. So there's so much potential. And I think if the young people can see this potential, write small concept notes, apply, just go and talk to whoever you're able to approach and tell them, I can do this for you. They will see the worth of what it is that you want to do for them. Yeah.
It's interesting how you turned also the whole aspect about you climbing rocks and everything, and you started thinking in line with entrepreneurship side of things, about
Yeah.
the whole aspect of tourists and stuff like that, which is rather brilliant. Also, just to also mention on this other side of things, which most people usually tend to struggle, especially for those who are looking at it from the terms of last resort. But from your case, it's been more about, one thing leads to another. It's more of like a ripple effect. You are curious about, let's say, this particular field of thing, and you're very open-minded. You hop there, then you get its open door to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. On your advice about proceeding on in terms of the professional career, is it would you rather recommend for people to stick in this one-dimensional way, that once they're done with their undergrad, they need to go straight to masters, or should they just hop onto the field open-mindedly, looking for opportunities, and through that energy, they are gonna get the avenues? Because I've also seen that you went to the Manchester Metropolitan University for your masters, then later on
Yeah.
to Stellenbosch. So yeah, those type of opportunities, did they come because you had already a pre-informed idea about these unis, or was it because of your side quest as you were trying to do most of this research? Some of the opportunities actually came along.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a very important one. So actually, I see a lot of people jumping onto masters immediately after undergrad, which is an okay thing. It is not a bad thing. I didn't do that personally myself. Why? Because I wanted to put into practice what I had learned at the university when I was in undergrad. And we had the opportunity. So I cannot place my situation then with the current situation now, because I know that a lot of young people are now going into masters immediately because of probably lack of opportunities in the job field. But what worked for me also is, after I went into the industry, specifically into ILRI, to do work as a GIS analyst, I saw the possible or potential research areas that I would like to tackle during my master's. So a lot of the work I was doing as a technician was already research work. And so when I applied for a master's and ILRI co-sponsored me for that master's, I already had a very good idea of the research area that I wanted to go into. And so it was pretty easy to plug in and do something which I was very interested in. And that's how I ended up at the Manchester Metropolitan University, because they had a strong GIS department. And then now for PhD, as I say again, it was purely, I did not really intend to go into honeybees. But because at that point I wanted to go into remote sensing, And this opportunity showed up where I needed to use remote sensing to, do some habitat sort of, analysis for honeybees. I saw the opportunity and decided, why not? I told myself, why not try honeybees this time around? Specifically because of the importance of honeybees in biodiversity, in food security, and essentially in life, life in general relies greatly on honeybees. I decided that this is an area which I'm very interested in. So what I would actually urge the young people is to make sure you find an area that is interesting for you. Why? Because the possibility of you staying in that area will be much higher, or your staying power in an area in which you're very interested and passionate about will be much higher than an area which you find yourself in randomly because this is what was available. You will not have the passion, you'll not be interested in it. So for me, sometimes I go to bed, and while I'm in bed, I am, as I'm trying to sleep, an idea pops up because of my passion in that area. And I'm like, Eureka, I found the solution to this problem that's been bugging me. And in the morning when I wake up, I have a lot of excitement and passion for what I'm going to do, mainly because the areas I've chosen were deliberate. I knew that this is an area I'm interested in and not just an area I find myself in. So I would urge the young people, even as you go into all these diverse fields, make sure it's something that gets you out of bed every morning, something that is exciting for you, something that you really want to do. And even if it's for a master's or PhD, let that research be something so exciting for you that even on Saturdays and Sundays, you do not mind working on it because that's exactly what you're going to have to do. So that's the one thing that I can really tell them, to make sure that any area they choose to work in or to study is exciting for them. So whether somebody decides to do a master's immediately after undergrad or to wait a little bit, let it be something that an area of interest that they find very exciting. Yeah.
Very exciting about, wow, I love the sentiments. I love the thought behind that. So I don't know, for those who are joining us in this chat today, this is the time for you to actually ask those questions that you might be having, the dilemmas that you have. For those who are part of the unemployed statistics, like myself, also in this conversation, this is the time also for you to, air out your concerns, your questions, and also ask for insights. So yeah, this is the part where we open it up before we can actually wrap this session up. Pamela just texted Pamela. I almost thought this was you saying, I really
Yeah.
like your presentation, Dr. Pamela. I'm also finalizing on my master's project, okay, and it's tied down on getting a good research topic for my PhD. Oh, congratulations, Pamela. Yeah, congratulations on your master's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations, Pamela, on your master's. And yeah, in fact, in many cases, master's and PhD research, you can actually develop your master's research into a PhD so that now you're looking at it more deeply. And yeah, it actually works very well because then you become a real strong expert in that particular area of research. So congratulations, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else you have in future.
Okay, can I maybe say something?
Oh yeah, feel free.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. for your presentation. That was really good and it's an eye-opener. Also, on my master's research, it's what I did on my undergrad, and now I'm like getting into details with it. But I wanted to do my PhD almost like immediately so that I can finish up on that before I go back to the like job market, because I was doing something but it was in carbon mapping, but it wasn't really my interest. And my interest was mostly in climate change, relating to like flooding and that. So I don't know how to, like, I really don't know what to do next for my PhD, since now I'm doing flood prediction and flood risk mapping for my master's. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Pamela, for that. What I would urge you to do is also to work with experts in the industry. So don't treat your research as a sort of one-man show between you and your supervisors, but rather also talk to people in that area, in that field, who, let's say, for instance, are working directly with, flooding and what have you. And I'm assuming that what you're doing is modeling. Maybe we can have a little conversation about this, Pamela, but are you doing something on modeling and prediction?
Yes.
Yeah, so another thing you could also think of, even as you think of your PhD research, is looking at more the humanitarian side of it, the more anthropological side of it, and also incorporating, sensors and things like that. So there's a lot that, we professionals in the technical fields tend to do a lot of, technical work, modeling, prediction, mapping, classification, etc. But one thing that is also really picking up and attracting a lot of funding is when you put that knowledge and incorporate the socioeconomic aspects of it. So this is an area that is maybe not yet as well developed as more of the technical side, and that you should consider, and all others, as they're even doing their masters and PhD, consider incorporating some parts of socioeconomic aspects, anthropological aspects into your work. And now this makes it directly applicable to the people, applicable to humans that are actually affected by this problem. So I would urge you to look into that, even as you think of your PhD, and others even as they think of their masters.
Oh, lovely. And there's also a question that has just dropped in the chat box, which I think you've answered, but I'd like if you could perhaps focus on it this time. And it says, someone is asking, based on your rich experience in research, Dr. Pamela, and the focus areas you've focused on from honeybees and archaeology, are there areas you consider unexplored but full of opportunities that are worth exploring?
There's, honeybees, this is on biodiversity, archaeology, this is on heritage mapping. So you also have a lot of other areas, for instance, ecology, looking at trophic levels, examining how, these biospheres co-relate with, with other spheres, etc. I think the atmosphere in terms of atmospheric remote sensing maybe is not yet as well developed. So when we're talking about climate monitoring, we don't just look at, say, for instance, rainfall, but there's a lot of other atmospheric parameters. Also, in terms of pollution and things to do with components of the atmosphere, like what Sentinel-5P can map. So there's a lot of new sensors that are coming up that are measuring different aspects, oceans, etc. And then also social science. Social sciences are very broad as well. Apart from just archaeology, you also have anthropology, you have agricultural economics and stuff, and even art, even artists. So there's a lot of fields that we as geospatial scientists and technologists can go into and work with those different professions. Yeah.
That has actually been well answered. Thank you very much, Dr. Pamela. Now, on to, I think this is probably the last question from Wanda Kariuki. Lovely. She says, your story is very inspiring. I may not be in the same field because I have just finished my astrophysics undergraduate. I knew there was someone in astrophysics from the answers that we were receiving during that game session that time. Anyway, so just finished my astrophysics undergraduate, but I am currently doing an online course on conservation of wildlife using GIS. And I want to experiment what I can do with this after I finish it and maybe even learn more. So thank you for being here. Yeah. Also, I'd also like to be grateful for you being here. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wanda. Yeah.
Wanda Karuki. So on to the perhaps the last question. If you were to go back to uni, what is the one thing you'd be proud about young Pamela Ochungo?
I think I would be proud about young Pamela Ochungo for hanging in there, for tackling difficult courses, keeping an open mind, and just plodding on to do what actually she loves to do. So that's one thing that I would be proud of her, and also the curious mind and the ability to network. So I think I would be very proud of Pamela for hanging in there. Yeah. And can I say one more thing about young professionals, because this is why we're here, and how they can stay open-minded to unconventional opportunities? I would say stay curious, okay? Stay curious, just as I've said before, because the best opportunities rarely look conventional. They will rarely look like what you think they should look like. So be curious and don't just rely on your qualifications, okay? When I think of when I graduated, I thought careers were just about ticking boxes, get the degree, apply for the job, follow the ladder. But the interesting thing, the reality is that some of the most exciting opportunities in geospatial are the ones that did not fit into the neat categories that we thought. So if you keep yourself curious, curiosity is what's going to keep you moving forward. And that curiosity is what's going to end up defining your career. And one other thing that I must tell you is collaborations. Say yes to collaborations outside of your key field, okay? If you only collaborate with people within geospatial and the areas that it's going to limit you. So me, for example, I've collaborated with archaeologists, as you know, with ecologists, with social scientists. And as much as these were not obvious pairings at first, each of these collaborations really opened up a new way of seeing what geospatial science could do. So please, as young professionals, say yes to working with people outside of your discipline, even if it feels uncomfortable, because this is where the real growth will happen. And I think I can say that, and also leverage technology, which is now, at your fingertips. There's hackathons, there's online research groups, there's open source projects, webinars. So these are spaces where you as young people or young professionals can really explore unconventional paths. And I've seen careers launched just simply by somebody joining an open source mapping project online, and suddenly they get a global collaboration and become part of a global project. So the more you plug into these communities, the more the doors will open for you. And finally, I would say stay open-minded. It will redefine your success. It might be a hybrid of many things, entrepreneurship, like for instance, the lady who has talked of being an astrophysicist. Congratulations. And we look forward to seeing your research in wildlife conservation. But I would also urge you, as an astrophysicist, you have the know-how which is required now in areas like the Kenya Space Agency, where now they're looking at developing CubeSats and such like opportunities. There's opportunity for even entrepreneurship, okay, in these areas. So look at all those and keep in mind that your career is not a single road, but it's a map with very many routes. So that's all I can tell you. And I would tell you to think less about following a path, but think more about creating a new path. Thank you.
Jeez, you've just kept them coming. Those wise words, like your career is not really a single path, but it's like a map with many paths. Jeez, I feel like
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just by myself, but like it's like my prefrontal lobe has just been, stretched this much. So yeah. For those who are joining in right now, this has been the young professional segment of the GeoHabari podcast, and we've been having Dr. Pamela Ochungo here share really brilliant nuggets about this whole aspect of young professional and the unconventional geospatial side quests and career paths that are often mentioned or talked about, especially in the traditional setting. But yeah, that's it. For those who might have missed it, feel free to pop into our Spotify account. Just search GeoHabari there and you'll find the Young Professional segment. We've been having a couple of episodes before, and feel free to pop in there, follow. You can click on the notification so that every single time there is an episode that has popped up, you're going to be notified. And this particular segment of the podcast is dedicated particularly to those of us who are still young in this geospatial field and profession. So yeah, feel free to hop there and follow us on our social media platforms. And I'm hoping that this is actually going to be enriching. All we are hoping is that we have people get the knowledge that we wish we had while we were still in uni. We'll wrap it up from here. And thank you very much, Dr. Pamela, once again for sharing your story and insights with us today. And to all the students listening, I hope that this conversation has showed you that your career doesn't, have to be in a straight sort of like a highway, but sometimes those small, tiny detours and side quests that make the journey worthwhile are really, really important. So yeah, if you enjoyed this, stay tuned for more episodes on the Young Professional segment on the GeoHabari podcast. That's on Spotify and other outlets as well. And of course, I'd love to hear from you. If you had the chance to take a career side quest, what would it be? You can comment on the chat on Spotify when it comes out, or even reach out to me on LinkedIn or anywhere else. Till next time, I've been your host, Linus Anari, and thanks for joining. Let's keep exploring these possibilities here.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.